Hey y'all, hi. So the other day I was browsing somewhere, like maybe it was Instagram, it was somewhere on the internet, and I saw a link. It was something trying to get me to click through to a listicle, the world's 20 most stylish women. I saw it and it made me reel. It didn't compute. That doesn't make sense to me, I thought. It just seems absurd. Something in me saw this, the world's 20 most stylish women, and just fundamentally rejected it. Why? Why? As I sat with that, I started to unpack my visceral reaction and tease apart its threads. I thought this might make a good YouTube video. So here we are. My name is Hannah. I make videos about style and beauty on YouTube. I'm also the author of a prize-winning book of poetry, Julia Hungry, which I'll link at the top of the description box down below. I hope you'll subscribe if you like this, and let us now get into the meat of the video. Fashion and beauty are kind of all of a piece for me, which is why I make videos about both on my channel. And apropos of that, today's video is sponsored by iRESTORE. So I'm going to take a minute to tell you about this, the iRESTORE Illumina. It's an LED mask, a very good one. I don't think any of you know this, but back in my early 20s when I had raging acne, it was a series of LED treatments at a spa that finally calmed my skin. I haven't talked about it on YouTube though, I think ever, because it's so expensive. At the time, I was only able to do it because I was trading the spa treatments with an esthetician I knew. I was trading for tango lessons. But now this exists. And I've seen masks like this popping up here and there, but here's the thing. If a beauty device is inconvenient or uncomfortable, I won't use it. And then it doesn't matter how well it works. And LED therapy works. The light triggers the mitochondria in the skin, I have learned, to literally produce more energy, which causes a cascade of cellular events. I read that somewhere and it really stuck in my mind. But that is what it is. It boosts collagen and elastin production, promotes tissue repair. So that's why we see this reduction in redness and inflammation, improved elasticity, glowiness, etc., etc. This is a particularly powerful mask compared with others on the market. It has more LEDs and more bulbs per LED. But truly, just as importantly, I love using it. I like that it's this light, hard shell that floats on the face instead of being like a heavy silicone thing that flops and wraps around. The light cycle is only 10 minutes, which goes by in a flash. You only have to use it 3 times a week to see results, but I just keep it next to my desk. It's there begging to be used, and I use it almost every day. So I'm getting to do every day something that costs an average of $100 per treatment at the spa. I love it. I have such history with this specific technology. It's amazing to see how far it's come. So if you go through my link or use my code, you can get $205 off of the iRESTORE Illumina. I'll put the link and the code at the top of the description box down below. So why did I experience a full body visceral reaction at the idea of the world's 20 most stylish women before I even clicked through, or without even clicking through? To be fair, I didn't even click through, but I have read lots of listicles like this before over the course of my life. And I think it was a rejection of the combined weight of all of them that came crashing down on me, triggered by just the title of this one. So I thought about it and I thought about it, and here's what I came up with. One of the reasons it made me feel so uncomfortable and just made me feel no, as someone who thinks a lot about style and enjoys talking about style on the internet, no to that. One of the reasons is that inevitably these people on the list are famous. What it means is the world's most stylish famous people, or which famous women are most known for their style. But what you wear when you are famous is such a thin and rarefied version of personal style, almost like a straw man of style. A lot of famous people have stylists. They have lives full of extraordinary occasions, even the occasion of being photographed by the paparazzi when you leave the house just to go get a coffee. A lot of famous people have piles of money and tons of storage space and just aren't constrained by the practical aspects of wardrobe building that constrain most of us and define wardrobe building for most of us. In fact, in light of that, I might say that a famous person is the worst person to hold up as an example, a transferable example of personal style. Of course, the listicle, which I didn't click through and read the specific one, might have included fashion famous people, fashion insiders, and not not just movie stars. And for them, for fashion famous people, it's a little different than movie stars, but still, the playbook for building personal style is extremely rarefied in the world of high fashion. And it just doesn't translate to most of us. So that was my first objection. But then as I sat there thinking about it, I realized that it goes even further than that. Perhaps my bigger problem actually with lists like this and what I've perceived from them over the years and the way in which they've influenced me over the years that I've then had to kind of unlearn. The issue is that lists like this, inevitably, their definition of style has to do with trends. Knowing what's on trend, following trends, knowing like how to apply trends in a clever way. Being able to ride the wave of what's trending. You know the term clothes horse? Have you heard this term? Sort of an old-fashioned term that I used to think meant somebody who loves clothes and like collects a lot of clothes. I think that in my mind as a young person, I conflated the term clothes horse with the concept of being like as hungry as a horse. So hungry you could eat a horse. I don't know. For years, like for most of my life, I thought that clothes horse meant somebody who buys a lot of clothes, hoards a lot of clothes, just is obsessed with clothes. And then I looked it up one time and I learned that it's actually a term for a piece of furniture over which you would, I think like butlers would drape clothing in order to help it keep its structure. Let me look it up so that I make sure I get it right. Okay, so a clothes horse is actually an upright wooden frame for hanging clothes to dry. Maybe just like a drying rack. But then it has a secondary and more abstract meaning, that upon which something is mounted, right? So that upon which something is hung. And then the figurative definition, the relevant definition, a person whose sole function seems to be to show off clothes. So calling someone a clothes horse means that they are just there to show off clothes. Like the body as a store mannequin, the body as a mannequin in the window of a store. This is starting to help me get at why I felt such a visceral rejection at the idea of this list. Because I feel like the list of the world's 20 most stylish women is probably just a list of clothes horses. Like the list should be called the world's 20 most successful clothes horses. It's kind of the opposite of personal style. If your body is just a rack upon which that which is trending now is hung and displayed for the world to see. Even if you are in some way responsible for tinkering with the styling of those clothes. And again, kind of like figuring out how to employ trends, which I'm not unaware is part of what I do as my job. It's a part of my job that I really enjoy. But I think that what I'm realizing is I don't consider that to be what comprises actual personal style. And so if that's not style, then what is? If clothes horses are not the world's most stylish people, then who are the world's most stylish people? That was where I first ended up when I had this sort of wave of thoughts and questions on that fateful day. And then I had to sit down and try to answer that question for myself. And I'm actually going to read to you what I wrote because I wrote it out. I was like, to me, it's this, and I wrote it out, and it came out sort of in a stream of consciousness flood, but sometimes that has use value. So here's what I wrote. To me, what it really means is having a strong point of view that leads to clothes that makes you feel embodied, like really in your skin. And then doing the pleasurable, challenging task of building a sustainable wardrobe. And by that, I mean a collection of pieces that will last longer than a season or two. So it didn't mean sustainable, like eco-friendly, although I do think that that's really important. I mean sustainable in your own life, a wardrobe full of pieces that will sustain. The pleasurable, challenging task of building a sustainable wardrobe with the resources that you have. And by that, I mean the money, time, and space that you have. So if you need a shirt, you're asking, what shirt can I afford and afford the space to store that will be practical in my life for several years and last and retain its quality through those years that also inspires a tactile and conceptual pleasure for me? Like a shirt that, I don't know, reminds me that textiles are an ancient art, or like reminds me that color is really powerful and spiritual. So a shirt that checks all those boxes, does all those things, and that also speaks about me in some way, like somehow tells the story of my personal relationship to fashion, how much I care about it, whether I take it seriously or am lighthearted about it, whether it's a historical concern or a modern concern, what kind of gender signals I want to send, feminine, masculine, non-binary, androgynous, a mix of several, a shirt that does all that and reveals or calls attention to the right amount and the right part of my body for my lifestyle and my preferences. So a shirt that does all of those aesthetic things, but again, the foundation of this is practical constraints, what your lifestyle requires, what you can afford, and how much space you have to store your clothes and accessories. That is what I wrote. So like all of that together is a big project that is like so hard, and it requires brain power and commitment, and it requires the desire to have that undertaking. And a lot of people just don't have the desire. A lot of people don't care to do that. They just want to try way less hard and think way less about all of this stuff than one would have to do to complete the project that I just outlined. A lot of people want their clothes to just be fine, like to be just fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're talking about like what is personal style. And my friends, for example, my friends who are like that, who want their clothes to be just fine, they look great, but I wouldn't put them on my list, my personal list of like my 20 most stylish friends. They're lovely, they look lovely, but they just aren't practicing stylishness in this lifetime fully. But my friends who relish every part of the sort of multi-phase problem that I just laid out, relish every part of it, and are, always honing their ability to curate and create through those many steps a wardrobe. And then with the wardrobe that they build, playing around with how to combine the pieces in new ways and in different ways all the time. Those are my friends who I feel are really practicing stylishness as an art form. And here's the thing, I love this stuff. That's why I've ended up sitting here before you making YouTube videos about it. There's a lot that I like to do with my time and energy, but practicing stylishness and I guess thinking about what it even is one of them. And that's where a lot of my videos are coming from these days. And I'm starting to think that what it even is might actually be like a question for us all. Like, let's keep drilling down into this, because I'm starting to think, or coming across the link to this listicle and then being like, no, 1,000 times no, and then why, and then, the train of thought that I jumped on and that I've just outlined for you. It's causing me to start to think about the way in which we're being fed messages about style and about what stylishness is that aren't actually comprehensive, that don't take into account the whole picture of a person and the reality of contemporary life. I reached a similar conclusion in my video about the Kibbe system, which I will link in case you haven't seen it. So here at its conclusion, because this is all I've got for you today, this video is, I guess, just kind of a preview of things to come. What is style? What is stylishness? I think that the answer might be more complex and more profound than I thought. I feel like the door has been blown open and I'm looking forward to walking through it. And I hope that you'll come along with me. I appreciate you so much for being here, listening to this one. Of course, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I feel like there's so much potential for discourse. Subscribe if you would like to, and don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.